Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. I'm your host, John J. II, here with Musa Basal. Musa, buddy, how we doing, man?
Doing great, just kind of getting through the whole start of the season chaos, and the Lions are sitting on top right now in the NFC North, so can't be happier.
Yeah, it's good news, good times, happy living for the Detroit Lions and Detroit Lions fans. And trust me, I've been following them very closely, regardless if I'm a Detroit Lions fan or not. We can kind of guess where I am. And the last thing I would let myself do is become a bandwagoner. And Musa, you know that. But I am happy. I got to say it. This is coming from me, coming from the heart. I'm happy where the Detroit Lions are at. I'm happy for Dan Campbell more than anything else. And I'm excited for what they're capable of doing. They're sitting atop the NFC North, like you mentioned, and the only thing they can't do is get comfortable. If they get comfortable, then they're in a bad spot mentally. But they were humbled by the Seattle Seahawks, which we talked about in the pre-show. I think was a blessing in disguise for the Detroit Lions in their longevity going throughout the rest of the season. We'll talk about that here shortly. Got a lot to go through tonight. Big slate for you. Got a little bit of catching up to do. But nevertheless, let's get right into it. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. So the Dallas Cowboys are abysmal. They are the armpit of the NFL, as I've mentioned previously. And that's not just a subjective opinion. I think the proof is in the pudding. Musa, where are the Dallas Cowboys at right now? Jerry Jones is, I think he's curling up. He's getting nervous. I don't think he likes the state of this team and where they're at right now. But what do you got to say about the Cowboys?
The Cowboys have one thing going for them. They have a very good defense, and that's pretty evident. I mean, the defense was carrying this team, and I think we both called it out that the Dallas Cowboys are frauds. I mean, they have a really good defense, but their offense is completely crap. I mean, you gotta see what's going on with this offense. Why can't they score points against an actual good team? And when their defense can't put up 40 points a game for them, how are they going to win games? So I think you got to really look at one, the QB, Dak Prescott, and seeing what's going on there and just kind of dig deep into the offense if they really want to make it. I think right now they're a barely making the playoffs team, not going to make a deep run, anything like that, out in the first or second round of the playoffs right now, the way it's looking.
Yeah, it doesn't look too good for America's team, which I'm going out on a limb saying that. That's what they've been known as historically. But obviously, in the minds of the people, in the minds of people like me, especially, I don't look at them as America's team. I don't know if you do, Musa, regardless of the stereotype or not, or the classification. But they're not proving that they're America's team. They're not showing up to be America's team. And somehow, some way, they are favored against the Chargers, the 2-2 Chargers. By 2 points, which I don't really know how that is. They're dealing with a slew of injuries. Dak Prescott is in shambles. And I think they got to figure it out at the quarterback position. I don't know if Cooper Rush is the answer to all their peril, but if not Cooper Rush, then who? Essentially, who do they bring on? Do they bring on a free agent? Do they bring someone up from the depths of the depth chart, from the bottom of the barrel? What do they do at the quarterback position? Because he's proven time after time he's unable to scramble in the pocket. He's unable to deal with defensive line pressure. And he can't get the ball down the field to his star receivers. So what do they got to do at the quarterback position if they keep Dak Prescott and he somehow, some way stays healthy throughout the rest of the season? How do they manage Dak Prescott into finding his stride as quarterback?
I mean, it could come down to coaching. I'm not too focused on this team. And just to touch on your point of Dallas Cowboys being the America's team, I don't think they are anymore that stereotype. I think the stereotype has moved towards the Lions being America's team. They're going to punch the ball down your throat and so on. But I think last year when Dak Prescott went down and Cooper Rush was performing amazingly well, that showed you some potential in this offense. So if you keep Dak, I don't know if it's the best way forward. I mean, there is going around that Colin Kaepernick wants to get back to the NFL. You could give him a shot on a really cheap contract, sign him to your practice squad, and build him up, and maybe have that as an option going forward. But who knows?
Colin Kaepernick. Wow, haven't heard that name, and I don't think that name has even been mentioned on the DCP. Maybe it has, and it hasn't really been in a serious sense. So if they're looking to get with Dak or with Colin Kaepernick and jump in the sack with him, then they're really in a bad spot, because then they're really grasping for straws. And who knows? He might be their only option at the end of the day, regardless of the scandals, regardless of everything going on, the controversy, what have you. I mean, that would be a very big plot twist / paradigm shift if they bring on Kaepernick out of, basically not being wanted or, not to be acquired by any NFL team for the past several years. That would be it would be an option, I guess. If you're grasping for straws and you're this desperate, I think that would be a kick in the face to Cooper Rush to at least not give him a chance. And I don't think that he should just have to play by default. You got to try something new, get a new face in there, get a new body in there under center. You got to figure it out. You got to do something.
Yeah. So, that's why I'm all in favor of like signing Colin Kaepernick to the practice squad. Give him a shot. Give Cooper Rush a shot. See how he performs. See how he performs with that threat of Colin Kaepernick. Put that pressure on Dak by signing Colin Kaepernick. Dak doesn't perform. Okay, next man up is Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush doesn't perform. Colin Kaepernick. I think that wouldn't be the worst options in the world. I don't really know of much of any other QBs that are available right now. I just know that Colin Kaepernick is really desperate to get back into the NFL.
I like that. Put pressure on Dak Prescott. He needs the pressure. I think he's getting too comfortable. Not only as a quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, but as a quarterback in the league, and he's getting comfortable with complacency. And as a Dallas Cowboys team, historically known as a win now program, maybe going back to the Troy Aikman days, you want to win if you're the Dallas Cowboys, and you have somewhat of a reputation to uphold. So you got to put pressure where pressure is needed. And I think that is at the quarterback position in Dak Prescott. Obviously, Dallas is dealing with some issues with injuries. They're dealing with an IR problem. Van Der Esch, took a big hit. He's dealing with a neck injury. He is on IR. Rashaan Evans is in the fold at the linebacker position. Tony Pollard has been listed as questionable going into this week against the Chargers. Peyton Hendershot is on IR for his ankle at the tight end position, and then Trayvon Diggs is on IR for a torn ACL, which that's a big hit to that Dallas defense. But good thing they have depth and they have strength in numbers to be able to count on some of those depth players to hold up that defense. The defense is really all they have right now, and the defense needs to be relieved of their pressure after taking a big beating by the San Francisco 49ers. That was not a good look for the Dallas Cowboys. And I've already been starting to talk my shit about, listen, look for graphics to come out about the Dallas Cowboys being eliminated from playoff potential. And they're not too far away from that spot. Yes, there's a lot of games left, a lot of time to redeem yourself and to make changes and adjust. But I might throw that out as a little bit of a nut kicker, you could say. So look out for that on the social media waves. I know I got friends and family that are diehard Dallas Cowboys fans that will just be cringing at that post. But start cringing in advance, people. It's coming.
I mean, yeah, just time and time has repeated itself over and over again. They look good, and they just get completely destroyed. They get, especially when the playoffs roll around, if they make the playoffs, they just get knocked out almost instantly. They just can't compete. So I think it might be time for a lot of changes on that offense.
It very well may be. Let's move on. Let's talk about the New England Patriots. Rumor has it, Bill Belichick was going into McDonald's. He needed some lunch, and he walked in. He asked for a Big Mac, and the clerk questioned him, "Oh, are you asking for a Big Mac or a better Mac?" The question and the jury is still out on that one, but the question remains: is Mac Jones it? Is he the quarterback for the New England Patriots? Is he going to get them to star status after the departure of Tom Brady, which it seems like they've never really been the same since he left? And Bill Belichick is not too happy. He's getting up there in age, and he needs to be coaching a team where he can be comfortable at least at the quarterback position. So this is just yet another team that's dealing with quarterback issues, and it seems like that is the tail of the league. So what are they dealing with Mac Jones? Is he it? Can he be rehabilitated into being a strong stardom-filled quarterback, or is there no hope for Mac Jones?
I don't think there is hope in the sense of the short term. I don't think he's going to become a miraculous QB overnight. I think it'll take some time. I think you could develop him into a better quarterback, but he needs to sit behind a very well experienced QB, like we've seen a lot of the times in recent NFL history, where Patrick Mahomes sat behind his predecessor, Jordan Love sat behind his predecessor. They sit behind and they learn, and that really helps them when they get their starting role. So I don't think Matt Jones is the answer right now. Does he have a future in the NFL? That is yet to be determined. It depends on how he can develop and how well he can play going forward.
So Wednesday morning, Bill Belichick said in an interview, "We are not making any changes. We're sticking true. We're holding true with Mac Jones. We're holding out for him." And this is even going back to the Brady days, bringing the GOAT up. I know it can kind of sound like a broken record a little bit, but we mentioned this even on the GCP earlier in the week and also last week about how teams can get complacent once they have a quarterback they can count on. They can kind of build the team around the quarterback and things kind of fall into place from that. We talked about Alabama. We talked about Clemson and different teams to that stature, Georgia even. So if you have a quarterback, it's easy to build the rest of the team, especially the offense, around that quarterback. But if you don't have a quarterback, then it's like you're kind of building from the top down. And that's not really a way to manage a team. That's not a way to have a team that's going to be very diverse and very strong, at least on the offensive side of the ball. So to hear that they're not making any changes at the quarterback position with Mac Jones in there, they're going to have to make some other changes that make Mac Jones at least look better. So whatever that may be, Bill Belichick is a professional in his field. I'm sure he'll figure that out. But he's got to be able to swallow his pride. If that's your star quarterback and he's not producing results, that is the one player and the one person on the team that everything seems to revolve around. If you're not, putting up numbers, passing yards, completions, you're having constant 3 and outs. people take notice to that. People see that. So you got to make some changes with and around Mac Jones and the quarterback position as a whole because they're in shambles.
I mean, they're not one quarterback away from being a contender. They're just not. That's the truth of it. They have a lot they need to fix. And as of right now, I can see where Bill Belichick stands. I mean, they don't have really a better option available on the table, and they aren't entirely just dependent on a QB. They have a lot they need to figure out. Their wide receiver core, everything on the team kind of needs a whole rebuild. They haven't been the same since Tom Brady has left, and it just needs a proper rebuild. And I think the person who's going to be able to turn the team around is Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft.
Definitely, they have to. They've been doing it for long enough. Got walk sauce in the building. Belichick is a puss, he says. So, hey, I'm not going to go as far to say that. Belichick is a Hall of Fame coach. He's been doing his job. He's been getting the job done for many years. He's kind of coasting. I don't want to see him find that plateau that we've been seeing as of late. But, it's kind of looking like that. Got another comment here. Chase Bailey in the building. Are the Patriots looking for a QB in the 2024 draft or sticking with Mac? Musa, I'll let you answer that one.
I mean, I think just right now it's a little early to tell. It really depends on their draft position. I wouldn't be surprised if they are looking for a QB in the upcoming draft, or if they decide to maybe like trade back and get a lot of draft capital to build around Mac Jones and maybe take a QB late in the later rounds and develop that QB. It honestly just kind of depends on how this season plays out and what draft position they end up with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they put enough draft stock into Mac Jones, when he got drafted. So do they want to stick their neck out there and stay true to that quarterback position? Obviously, the Patriots are known as a quarterback-heavy team with Tom Brady yet again, and playing there for so many years, the better part of more than a decade. So it's tough to tell. It's tough to tell. I think you need to build depth at least, whether that's from a free agent in this season or in next year's draft. You got to make some decisions. You got to make some calls. Maybe let this season ride itself out and see what comes of it. But who knows? Then again, it could be too late to rebuild. And obviously, it's never too late for a rebuild. But you're going to lose fans. You're going to lose some numbers. And you got to produce. You got to produce as the New England Patriots. And we've seen strength with Mac Jones in flashes. We haven't seen it stick. So they're going to need to find something that sticks, find him in a method that he can work with. And, I don't see anything wrong with putting him on the TB12 method. And I think that's the only option they have, and they've struggled to do that as of late. So we'll see where the cards fall. It's
Yeah,
a complicated situation in New England.
and just to touch on that, I mean, this is kind of a perfect transition into our next talking point, the Lions. I mean, everyone wanted a QB to replace Jared Goff. A lot of people, and I'm just not gonna say everyone. I've always stuck with Jared Goff, but a lot of people wanted to draft a new QB. They wanted a QB. But why would you go with the unknown when you have something established and you know you can count on something and you know how they play already? So it's a big risk taking a QB in the draft. You don't know if they're going to be a bust or not. You already know what Mac Jones is. You know he can get better. He's not really going to go down from here.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely good to hope to count on a sure thing, but as we know in this life, in my 28 years, at least I can vouch for this. There's no such thing as a sure thing, and from a betting perspective, there's no such thing as a lock. So I think both these things go hand in hand. Let's move on to the next topic, which is the Detroit Lions. Obviously, Musa, you've been licking your chops to talk about these boys, these villains down there in Detroit. They've been doing great things. They've been showing us a lot of promise. Is it going to continue, or do you think they're getting complacent again? Where do you think they're at right now?
I don't think they're getting complacent. I think the loss to Seattle really nailed that in the coffin. They dug the grave. It's buried. I don't think they're going to get complacent. I think under Dan Campbell's coaching, they're going to keep on pushing and pushing and pushing. I mean, we saw it last year at the end of the season. They just kept fighting and fighting, and they just made a massive run. And just, I don't see them slowing down. I mean, they got humbled in Kansas after Kansas City. They beat the reigning Super Bowl champs. Probably were all in their up high, and they were just kind of in the zone. They're not kind of focused. They're like, oh yeah, we did it, and then they got humbled. And I think that was the perfect time for them to get humbled, because I rather them get humbled early on in the season where they can bounce back, figure out what they need to do, and they've already bounced back from it, and not have it happen in the playoffs where they don't get a second chance in the playoffs. So I think it is a blessing in disguise, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think so. And they're bouncing back. They're showing us a lot of promise. And I know Dan Campbell's in that locker room. I can kind of just see it through his body language on the sidelines with that headset. He believes in this team. He loves this team, and he's going to do whatever it takes for this team to win. It's very evident. We've seen that, and that takes us flashbacks back to when he got hired in the press conferences when he said he was going to bite kneecaps and chop ankles off. So that's
Yeah,
what we expect to see. We're starting to see that now. We gave him that grace period. The fans did, and they expected to going through that rebuild phase, getting some new guys in there, building some skill players, putting them in the right position, and getting them to play. Obviously, getting Jameson Williams back in the fold is big too. After his suspension, after the rules got changed for the betting thing, but
yeah,
he's in a good
yeah,
spot. The Lions are in a good spot. They feel good about where they're at, and yeah, they got the
yeah,
Bucks coming up
and
-3. And that's a big spread. I mean, to see the Lions favored, I mean, it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. And they're going to play Cleveland's clown, Baker Mayfield. But coming off a big win against Carolina doesn't hurt at all. Obviously, they're the scrubs of the league, essentially, this year at least. And they're hoping for big things.
but yeah, I mean, just to touch on, you hear all these motivational things coming from Dan Campbell, biting kneecaps, this and that. But when they're losing, a lot of people will be like, okay, your money isn't where your mouth is. But now that they're winning, you really get to feel like what culture he's built and what he says, what he really means. I mean, like there was a recent quote where he's like, "If you're hunting for us, you won't have to look far because we'll be at your front door on your porch." I mean, he just the endless creativity from Dan Campbell and just motivating these players. I mean, they just destroyed the Panthers team with a lot of their key players out, such as Brian Branch, Jameer Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. These are key players of their team, and they're still going up and putting 40 points on a team. I mean, it is fun to watch, and just the depth that they have, and everyone's just the next man up steps up and does his job. It's really good to see.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air. And I know they're focused on the playoffs. Getting to the playoffs is and should be the number one priority for the Detroit Lions after the heartbreak, after the comeback, and the revitalization of the Detroit Lions into the postseason. And it happened to be too little, too late, and they were counting on too many variables to be able to make it into that playoff spot. And they're off to a lot better start than they were last season. And they're feeling really good. They're doing the best they have been doing in a long time. So we're hopeful for the Detroit Lions. I'm pulling for them. Might not call myself a Detroit Lions fan, but I'm rooting for them. So I want them to do well. I'm a Dan Campbell fan, and I like what he's all about. He is what he's about. He talks about what he's about, and he proves himself on the field, on the sidelines. So I like what I'm seeing from this Detroit team and their unity. Their unity is evident on the field in their playing style. So I'm happy with what I'm seeing. No complaints. Moving on, we got to talk about Aaron Jones. So he's inactive from a hamstring injury incurred week 1 versus Chicago. They got the Broncos coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend. So he's got another week to kind of get a little bit more comfortable, to ice that hamstring, stretch it out a little bit, and feel good. So I was put under fire in the fantasy league that I'm in for dropping Aaron Jones into free agency, and I basically explained myself in a 6-minute video. That was it was very descriptive. It was very descriptive of not only Green Bay and the running back position, but Aaron Jones and his fit into the Green Bay Packers offense. And I don't know. I don't see him really sticking back into the fold, getting into the fold, and his projections and his numbers were a lot higher. He was overpromised and underdelivered. He did well week 1 in their win against the Bears, but after that, I didn't see much from him, and I knew that he could have played, but I don't think he wanted to push himself. But I don't know if I've ever seen a player sit out this long for a hamstring injury. What do you got to say about Aaron Jones?
I mean, okay, he has the Broncos coming up. That will probably be a good game for him. But like you said, it's a hamstring injury. He's barely played, and he does have a pretty tough schedules going forward. I mean, he will have a good game against the Broncos. I could imagine seeing that. mean, the Vikings, he might have an okay game, but then he goes against like the Rams. The Rams is a tough team to play against Aaron Donald. The Steelers, I'm actually not familiar with their defense. I do think they are playing pretty decent, so I mean that might be a mediocre game for him. But then he has the Chargers. He's back at the Lions. Then he's at the Chiefs. He just has a lot of tough matchups coming ahead that I don't see the value in keeping him. So I kind of agree with you dropping him there. He's prolonged a hamstring injury for a very long time, and he has a pretty decently tough schedule going forward.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate those kudos because it might be easy for somebody like me that thinks of a star running back like Aaron Jones, somewhat of a cornerstone of the Green Bay offense, and you're dropping him, not even putting him into a trade position where maybe another team or another manager would like to take a gamble on him and giving me some draft stock. Maybe looking into retrospect, seeing the value that Aaron Jones did have, at least in the eyes of those in the league. Maybe I could have put a trade together that, throw him in there with a good player, a good wide receiver, even another running back, something like that that's in my bench. I might be taking up some spots just to build a trade and try to get some more value out of that from my perspective. Maybe get a mid-tier wide receiver, running back, skill player, someone from my flex, tight end even, just to kind of throw in the bench and get a breath of fresh air for that bench, just to get some more people, more bodies to be able to pull from in that bench position. So in retrospect, maybe I should have done that, but I was met with mixed opinions as far as, okay, that was a good option to drop him, or that was the worst decision you could ever made. You're throwing the league. You're going to be, this is basically swaying the balance for whoever's staying on their phone and is that next in line for the waiver wire. So if he pans out and you take a gamble on him, being injury prone, being quote unquote soft, I guess I'll call him soft for being sitting out for the hamstring injury, then go ahead, take that gamble, be my guest. It's not going to be me. I've done it too long. I got players on IR that show no promise, and they might as well throw a headset on and put on the Mike McCarthy fit. So that's kind of where I'm at. We're moving on. These are bygones to bygones. These things have occurred and they have came and went. So we're going to move on from it. And I'm happy with the decision. I stand by the decision to this day, regardless of the backlash received. So Green Bay is going to make their choices. They have A.J. Dillon. They got Patrick Taylor in there as a free agent coming in. And he's showing potential too. He's getting a few touches, obviously getting some more touches in there, giving A.J. Dillon a couple breaths in between reps on the offense. But it's going to pan out how it decides to pan out. Taking a little bit of a gamble, freeing up a spot on my bench to be able to get more potential for trades and to get more potential for new bodies on that bench. So the idea of a bench is to be able to get them to eventually weasel their way into a starting position. That's the goal of a bench. And I mentioned the bench, I compared it to a revolving door, and it should be somewhat of a revolving door. You want to treat it like a revolving door. Maybe you got some players that can loiter and sit in your bench week after week, but more often than not, you're going to want these players to be filtered into the starting lineup and get into the fold at some point in the season, because you got to see some potential in them to even have them on your bench in the first place. You want to have a strong bench. You want to have a strong starting lineup, but you really want to have a strong bench too, because that could be the difference maker going down the stretch.
I mean, yeah, my bench right now, I mean, I got Rashawn Johnson in there for the Chicago RB. I think he could develop into a pretty good player. But, like, I got some good players on my bench that I really need to start making trades for. I need to get them off my team and get some more value for them because they're doing me no good on my bench. And there's some players I'm getting ready. I'm ready just to drop, like Juju with Mac Jones as QB. It just hasn't worked out with him in New England, so it'll be interesting to see.
Definitely, yeah, and that's a good mentality to have, just to filter some new players in there, get them the breath of fresh air. They might fit better on another team than your team. So just because you're getting rid of a potentially good player doesn't mean you're throwing the league. Doesn't mean you're throwing your team into the fire. But the be all end all, especially for me with the Aaron Jones drop, is the fact that I think Green Bay is a sorry ass team in general. Jordan Love is not it. Matt LaFleur needs to get control of that team, and they're basically opening the door wide open for the Detroit Lions to sit atop of the NFC North, and they've done that. So I need to see a lot more potential coming out of Green Bay. And that's another team, yet again, that has fallen victim to having a poor quarterback, a quarterback that's not going to produce results, hasn't produced results, and is essentially demanded to produce results and hasn't.
I mean,
So that's 3 teams now. And
I
there's
do
more.
have I do have Jordan Love in fantasy, and he's put up solid numbers every week, but he just can't win games. So he might be a good fantasy option, but on the field performance, he just can't close out games. Win you don't win extra fantasy points because your team won, the player won. So he might throw a good game, but he just can't. He makes mistakes. He throws picks. Has costly drives that just don't go places. So as much as I've actually had a good experience with him on fantasy, in terms of just watching him play, he makes too many errors in the wrong moments that costs him wins.
Definitely. Aaron Walker with the comment, who could replace Jordan Love? Musa, got any questions there?
Oof,
Got
there's
any
a lot
answers?
of I mean, a lot of people are kind of in a bad QB spot. We already talked about the Dallas Cowboys, New England Patriots. I mean, I don't think the Green Bay Packers are ready to replace Jordan Love. It's way too soon. It's only his first season starting. I think he gets another year or two to figure out things. So I don't think they're gonna jump on an opportunity to replace him that quickly.
Yeah, Walk Sauce. My answer to that is anybody. Anybody and everybody has the option to replace Jordan Love. And I think that they should, because I think this will do one of 2 things. It'll either, and pressure makes diamonds or breaks pipes, right? We know that. Get somebody in there to put pressure on the starters, put pressure on Mac Jones, put pressure on Dak Prescott, put pressure on Jordan Love, because they're either going to produce or they're not, because someone else is out there, whether they're a free agent or signed to the team already, somewhere in the depth chart, that is going to be willing and able to put in the reps, to put in the work, to put results on the stat sheet. That's what you should be doing. You got to be doing that to build longevity for your team, to put wins in the win column, or at least give yourselves a fighting chance to win games. That's basically what it boils down to. So I'm not seeing that with the Green Bay Packers right now, and you just got to add them to the list of multiple teams that are struggling at the quarterback position, and you got to build your team around the quarterback, especially the offense.
Yeah.
So
And then
and we're seeing it play out that way to these teams' detriment by having a weak quarterback. So it is what it
uh,
is.
and then I just want to kind of go touch on more in the fantasy realm is Cooper Cup's back, but Puka Nacua is still a very viable option. I mean, Puka Nacua comes out of nowhere and starts exploding. One of the I think he'll be a top 5 receiver, top 10 receiver in fantasy this year, and that's with Cup back. I drafted Cup pretty late, not super late. I got him at I think a pretty reasonable draft position. Then I just had to play the long game. I also had Jonathan Taylor who came back. I mean, Cooper Cup right away, just back to back catches, making plays, scored 10 points, I think in like 2 minutes of the first drive, and then he kind of slowed down and Puka Nacua took over a little bit more. So I think I like that balance between the Rams where they have these multiple options, and then just the Rams offensive line just being healthy, Matthew Stafford having time to throw in the pocket. You see how elite of a quarterback he is. And then another player I think as if to keep an eye on is Jonathan Taylor. I mean, we all heard the news that he wanted a trade, but he says he's committed to the Colts team, and I want to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's definitely that's a sight to see, especially for the Rams. Not just having Cooper Kupp for a target or a primary target for Matthew Stafford, but you also got Puka Nacua, which is also a very strong target. And with Cooper Kupp being out and coming back, you could see them splitting touches. I think Cooper Kupp is still the man. Don't get me wrong, he's still the man, especially in Matt Stafford's eyes and the eyes of the Rams. And Sean McVay, I'm sure, thinks the same way. And he's an asset, kind of like a Travis Kelce for Patty Mahomes. But Puka Nacua is making strides, and he is pulling the weight that was left when Cooper Kupp got injured. So this is a breath of fresh air for the Los Angeles Rams. They have multiple targets, multiple threats throughout the air at the wide receiver position. And you better have your DBs stretching, better have them running, doing some high knees before the game, because this Rams offense, especially passing wise, they're gonna be traveling through the air quite a bit. Lots
Yeah,
of airmail.
and just to touch on Cooper Cup looks like he's at 110% in that game. He looks healthier than he's ever been. So it's keep an eye on this team. I mean, they were hanging with the Philadelphia Eagles. They could sneak into the playoffs and make a pretty good run.
Yeah, that's another one of those teams, I'd say similar to the Detroit Lions that have somewhat flown under the radar. And that is the Los Angeles Rams. They want to make a comeback, and they want to speak with their numbers and speak with their wins, and that's what teams should do. And if you can fly under the radar, honestly, I think that's the best position to be in, because then you're not having high expectations put on you. You're not, trying to stress yourself out to show out for the fans, put certain numbers on stat sheets, break 200 passing yards or whatever it is. You're just kind of going out there and playing football and showing out for your fans, and that's all you really should be doing. So I'm happy with where they're at, the Rams and the Lions both. But flying under the radar, the longer you can do that, obviously you can't do that forever, especially if you're playing good football and you're putting wins in the win column. But do it as long as you can, because it's only going to work to your benefit. So that's what I got there. Let's talk about tonight, Thursday Night Football. Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs minus 10.5. We mentioned it earlier in the pre-show. Put $1 on the Broncos and you win $20,000. If they win the money line, especially at Arrowhead. And I think I'm talking out my backside a little bit there. But
Yeah.
What are we looking for in this game? Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs, they've dealt with their issues coming off of a loss initially in the beginning of the season against the Detroit Lions. They've seemed to have bounced back in strong fashion since then. So what is the state of the Chiefs, and how does that compare against the state of the Broncos, which seems like a lot of the same over there in Denver?
I think what you want to see is you want to see the Chiefs just not let off. You want to see them put up 70, 80 points like the Dolphins did. And, the Chiefs also, I think another interesting factor is keep an eye on Travis Kelce. Even Patrick Mahomes said that he was trying to get Travis Kelce a touchdown since Taylor Swift is now in the stadium watching them play. This whole could be a whole podcast on its own, but I wouldn't be surprised if this later comes out that this was all a media stunt. I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised either. And I don't know. I think that, and I even went off the rails a little bit, and this was probably a couple weeks ago, but I think it's when they played the Jets, and I could be wrong here. I think I'm on point, but I think I said, and that was the coldest I've ever seen Travis Kelce get, and I believe Taylor Swift was in the building, but that was the worst football I've ever seen from the Chiefs offense, and they couldn't get the job done. They couldn't cover for me, and they were damn lucky to win that game. So they have the potential to let their foot off the gas and kind of let things get interesting, and that allows them to not cover and allows the teams they're playing to cover. So do I have enough faith in the Broncos to cover that 10.5? I don't. I really don't. Looking at it face value, I don't have the faith in the Broncos just because where they're at. Sean Payton hasn't really got the job done over there like we expected him to. But you can't put all the blame on the coach. You got to put the blame on the players at a certain point. And yes, it does revolve around the coach. The coach is a manager of the team. He's got to make the right decisions for the betterment of the team and the franchise and the donors and owners and everything. But they just haven't been able to produce. Russell Wilson's still remained in the rut that he's been in for a couple of years now. And I don't know. I don't know. Is this it for Russell Wilson? Is he done? I need to see him be revived. He needs to be risen from the depths of the ground. And I'm not seeing that as of late. And I know he wants to win. I know he wants to, better this team, and he wants to be an asset to this team. But that's just yet another team that's dealing with quarterback issues, and they've been dealing with for a long time. So where are the Broncos at?
It's hard to say because Sean Payton is still very new as a head coach. Just the only embarrassing thing is he was talking a lot of shit about Nathaniel Hackett before he took this job, and after he took this job, he was talking a lot of shit. But now he's arguably in a worse situation than Nathaniel Hackett was. I want to see this out. I want to see it through. He's dusting off the cobblers. I want to see him how he builds his team. I want to give him at least 2 years, just depending on how the rest of this year goes. So I want to see how he develops the free agent signing he comes up with and how he builds his team from the ground up. When it doesn't happen overnight, but you do have a quarterback that was regarded as one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, but now that he's playing like crap. You've seen a lot of things come out about him with his teammates saying that they don't trust him and things like that. I think that's part of it. It's fitting to Russ. So I think Russ just needs that confidence boost to get back to where he was and just start playing good football again.
Yeah, he definitely needs something. And Sean Payton, especially with all the shit talking before he started over there in Denver, it's making Nathaniel Hackett look a lot better than we were talking about him last year because he was under fire. I mean, we were throwing him to the wolves, putting him in the firing squad, and unleashing on Nathaniel Hackett. We were not going easy on him, but with the season and with the current stats that the Broncos have been putting up in their record and whatnot, everything. It's making Nathaniel Hackett look a lot better, and it's kind of painting Sean Payton in somewhat of a bad light. But yeah, like you said, you got to give him that grace period. And Russell Wilson needs a revival. He needs something that can bring him back from the ashes into being that star quarterback, which I think he still has the capability to be. Hasn't shown it, but I mean, people go through ruts all the time. And when you set the standard and set the bar so high with someone like Russell Wilson, you expect greatness immediately. You expect it to translate from team to team, regardless of personnel or anything like that, coaching, anything. So we need to see that happen. We need to see him make that transition, and we need to see him start winning games and putting up big numbers as quarterback, because I think that could gloss over a lot of the bad that we've seen. And unfortunately, the people and the fans have been setting the bar low for Russell Wilson because of what he's been doing. People are just getting used to it. But I can guarantee you this, Denver Broncos fans are sick of it. So they got to do something. They got to do something fast. Moving on. That brings us to the end. Anything fantasy-wise, fantasy updates? We talked about it briefly. Where's the state of your team at right now? We talked about your bench slightly, briefly. Are you looking to make any big picture moves? Any headline moves, headline trades, or do you like where your team's at?
I'm looking to make some big trades. I mean, I posted in the Discord that Jamar Chase, Sam Laporta, and George Kittle are on my trade block right now. I really do want to keep Laporta. I got an offer from Cody. It was a little undervalued, so I had to decline it. So I'm just kind of keeping an eye on that. I want to start just having George Kittle and Sam Laporta. It's kind of just going away to where I could get more value because my RBs haven't been all that great. I started off the season pretty slow. I mean, I did have Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor both on IR, so Kupp being back is great. We still don't know how Jonathan Taylor is going to come out, so I think if Jonathan Taylor has a breakout year again, comes back strong, healthy, my team's looking pretty solid going forward. I mean, it just need Jamar Chase to just keep on performing. I mean, I need that slump to be over that they had at the start of the season with.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems like you got a good handle on your team, managing them well. I'm riding with Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. I think they're on the mend. Talked about it last night in my 6-minute video to the boys in my other league. I think he's on the mend. I see a turning point with the Chicago Bears and their offense, and I see him starting to play football, be more mobile with his feet, which I know he has the capability to do. CeeDee Lamb, he's going to be an asset, but you got to get the ball to you. Dak Prescott's got to get the ball to him. Be mobile in the pocket. Calvin Ridley, same thing. Got to get balls to him. Got to get some catches. Got to get some attempts over there in Jacksonville from Trevor Lawrence. I think DeAndre Swift was a big add for me. Somewhat of an RB2 over there in Philadelphia, but I like him sitting there at the RB2. He's getting a lot of touches. Zach Moss has been a new add. Acquired him from a trade after getting rid of T. Higgins. And obviously Stephon Diggs is going to be a big asset for me too. So I'm expecting my players to go out. We got Taven this week, and I know she's shaking in her boots because she's got to play me. She's got to play my team, and we're dangerous. Yeah, we might be 2-2, but or 2-3, but we're still a threat. Make no mistake, we're still a very big threat, and there's a lot of games left. So we'll leave it at that.
I can't talk shit because I'm also at 2-3 right now. I'm waiting for our matchup to come up because that's gonna be the fun one. Both teams on the rise. It's gonna be interesting.
It sure is. All right, that brings us to the end of the show for tonight's double coverage. Musa, got any final thoughts, final words, final sayings for the people going into the weekend?
I mean, just be confident in your fantasy trades and drops. Don't let your team or your league say otherwise, and just because they think it's a bad idea, well, let them make that mistake. Let them scoop up that player if they really want to. Take that risk. You know better. Follow our advice, and you will win your league.
Well said. Well said. Take it with a grain of salt, but take it to heart as well at the same time. Cody in the chat says, "Get on my level, boys. Get on my level, boys." That's just a tidbit of the shit talking Cody Almasi's been doing. He's not just a college guy; he's also an NFL guru as well. Musa just hung up the phone, didn't counter offer, shake my head. Hey, we got to make the best decision for our team,
Hey,
right, Musa?
you need a lot more value if you want to get Laporta off my bench. I would do that trade for George Kittle, but not Sam Laporta.
All right, guys. Well, we'll leave it at that. Make sure to check out our social media at Gin Sports Network on IG. Go to our website, ginsportsnetwork.com, for all IG posts, updates, and articles. And check out our link tree for all of our links for Gin Promotions and the Gin Sports Network. We look forward to seeing you guys here next time. But for now, this has been double coverage. I'm John J. II here with Musa Basal. Have a great night.